Hello, my name is Meridian Grace, and I'd like to welcome you to the Awakening Health Show. Today, we're going to be talking about spring cleaning. You know, all of us seem to understand how important it is to clean out our drawers, to do the dusting, to do those special cleaning type projects when spring comes around once a year. But actually, most of us don't realize that cultures all over the world understood how important it was when spring came around to do special things that help to cleanse the body as well as their environment. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. In China, in the classic study of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, they talk about this time of year as being the time of year that's ruled by the liver and the gallbladder. The liver and gallbladder are involved with detoxification on such profound levels that honestly, I encourage all of my clients to do some light level of liver detox every day. And one of the ways to do that is by eating greens. So no matter where you are, whether you're in Southern California where you have greens available all year long, or if you're in the East Coast, where it's cold and wintry, or up in the mountains, young green sprouts are going to be showing up everywhere. And there's something about the bitter taste that's extraordinarily healing for the liver and the gallbladder. In fact, in cultures all over the world, they have used something called bitters to support the digestion, but it also supports the liver, and the liver controls digestion. So this bitter flavor is something that's truly wonderful. You can actually just go out and purchase different greens at your farmer's market. If you garden, which I highly recommend, you can certainly grow greens in your garden, and then you can have them very fresh. But there's something that's very interesting to me that happens in the spring, and that is that dandelions start growing everywhere. And the interesting thing about these dandelions is that the majority of us tend to do a whole big weed control and try and kill those dandelions using things that are very toxic, which actually are harmful to the liver and its ability to detoxify and support us. Instead, what we would be much better off doing is supporting those dandelions and picking the greens and eating those greens in wonderful salads or in special dandelion soups. Cream soups made with raw milk or raw cream are truly wonderful, with pasture-raised cultured butter. Also, Aboriginal peoples all over the world realized that at this time of the year, their animals that they would milk had a very, very special quality to their milk, and especially to their cream, because of this incredible life force that's happening in these newly emerging greens that are happening everywhere. Both spring and fall have a very special quality to the grasses, and the animals that eat these grasses produce a cream or a butter that is much richer in vitamin K, which is an extremely important vitamin. And there's a lot of beautiful research that was done from a wonderful dentist whose name was Dr. Weston A. Price. And he traveled and lived with people who were living a natural life, eating the foods of their environment only. And he basically found that all these cultures would save this special butter that they made from the special milk from spring and from fall. It would be extremely high in what he called X factor because they didn't know about vitamin K at that time. And it was fed to pregnant women and to their most important warriors and to couples that were planning to have children so that they would be the healthiest possible. It's truly a wonderful, wonderful substance, this special butter that comes from pasture-raised animals only because they have to be eating those natural grasses in order to produce this special X factor butter, he called it. So spring brings us many, many wonderful gifts, not just X Factor butter. It brings us this new life in the greens. And it also gives us an opportunity to do wonderful things for our liver. So anything good that you do for your liver, especially during the beginning of spring, you get almost 10 times the benefit from. And anything that you do that's harmful to your liver, you'll receive like 10 times the detriment from. So this is not a time to be out partying and drinking a lot. It's a much better time to think about doing a cleanse that will truly support your liver. Now, before I learned about the subtleties of how unique we all are in our detoxification processes, I used to have people do a liver gallbladder flush, which was quite an intense thing. But you have to be physically really strong to be able to truly benefit on all levels from that. So let's talk about some simple things that you can do now, which are very easy to do, very inexpensive, and wonderful for you. One of them is to make a special salad. A salad using tart, crisp apples. My personal favorite are Pink Ladies, but it's also fabulous to use Granny Smith's. And you would grate those, 1 apple to half a beet, and you grate a half a beet also. And then you would chop up some fresh parsley, or if you have it, some beautiful fresh greens that you've gathered from your own garden. But the parsley is very excellent. It also has a quality of helping to cleanse the kidney as well as the liver. So you chop up a good handful of parsley, and then you make a little salad dressing of things that are very wonderful for supporting the liver in its clearance. So what you do is you take a couple tablespoons of olive oil and a couple tablespoons of fresh lemon. I like to add ginger because ginger is such a fantastic herb for supporting digestion. So I'll grate about this much of ginger, and then I'll take it into my hands and squeeze it. And it's surprising how much ginger juice actually comes out of the ginger just by hand grating it and squeezing it yourself. And you would add this to it and then toss it all and enjoy. It is such a delicious salad that really helps with the health of your gallbladder. I also tend to use supplements that include a tremendous amount of beet greens with beet root at this time, because those are very, very supportive of bile function. So in the process of digestion, after your body has had a chance to break down your proteins and start breaking down your minerals into trace minerals, your proteins into amino acids, and killing parasites with your very, very strong, healthy hydrochloric acid. We'll talk about how to support that also at some other time. Then what happens is that the chewed materials that have gone down into the stomach and have sat there for about an hour, really being saturated with the hydrochloric acid, which starts breaking them down, start coming into the duodenal area, and it sets off a release of bile from the gallbladder. And this is where a very alkaline substance, bile, which is 8.5, meets this very acid substance, which is going to be somewhere between a 2 or a 3. These numbers that I'm talking about are called pHs. They have to do with hydrogen. Hydrogen tells us about how acid something is. And if the numbers are quite high, they're more alkaline. And when the numbers are very low, it's more acid. So a 2 is extremely acid. 7 is neutral, 8.5 is alkaline. But another wonderful thing happens, and that is that pancreatic enzymes are released and bicarbonate from the pancreas as well, and that can be as high as 11.2. So I don't know if when you were in school you ever did an experiment where you took vinegar and baking soda and put them together. But if you did, you would see this like an explosion of what happens, the chemical reaction that happens when you put the acid and alkaline together like that. that explosion will kill any pathogenic bacteria that happens to have made it through the stomach to protect you from parasites and harmful diseases that might have been like on the surface of the food if it wasn't cooked. If you don't have that extremely alkaline experience added to an extremely acid experience, people are always talking about how you have to alkalinize, alkalinize, alkalinize. No, we need a very acid stomach, a very alkaline bile and bicarbonate function from the pancreas. We have both acid and alkaline. What we need is to be balanced, and we need to have the right pH for the different organs and tissues in our body. For instance, if your bowels are too acid, you're going to have diarrhea. And if your bowel content is too alkaline, you're going to be constipated. So we don't necessarily want to be constipated, so we don't want our bowels to be too alkaline. So we do want to have this perfect balance. So think about it with me for just a minute. So many people are on this alkaline craze. What we want to do is have alkaline an hour and a half to 2 hours after we eat, because that's when the alkaline hits the acid. But we don't want to put alkaline in before that in a high amount with an alkaline substance, or taking bile salts or something that's extremely alkaline when we're eating, because that would just reduce the acidity and reduce our ability to break down the digestive juices, and the hydrochloric acid would then elevate and no longer be beneficial for our digestion. And this can be the beginning of all sorts of horrible problems. So are you getting an idea of possibly how bad it could be to be taking antacids? People think that when they have GERD or heartburn, that they're dealing with a problem of too much acid in their stomach. But actually, what almost always is the case is that there is not enough acid in the stomach. And the food has an excess of pathogenic bacteria that it meets in the stomach. And there's also a process, because the acidity is not high enough in the stomach, where the stomach starts to cause fermentation, which also supports these unhealthy pathogenic bacteria in the stomach, and they start a process which creates a lot of gas and air. And so if you burp, if you tend to have bloating, one of the easiest ways to tell if you're bloating is if your clothes are tighter at night than they are in the morning. The likelihood is that you are truly dealing with not enough acid in your stomach, not too much. And an antacid could be really detrimental in the ability for your body to be able to ultimately absorb your minerals. And most people don't realize that our minerals, particularly trace minerals, which we only really are able to receive after we've had this explosion of the acid and alkaline together, these minerals and trace minerals are what we call coenzymes, and they are extremely important for the function of every organ in the body. So any health issue that you may have could be taken care of just by upregulating your stomach acid and your alkaline bile and pancreatic enzymes. So this is a very important thing to recognize and understand. And your liver and gallbladder are extremely important for this spring cleaning process that we're going to be doing. So I would like to encourage you to look at ways that work for you to consume more beet greens and beet. And if you're one of the people that don't like to eat these foods, one wonderful thing that you can do is find high-quality supplements that are made from concentrated beet greens and beet. I know of some of them that are concentrated as much as 100 times. So all you need to do is take a few capsules of them, and you can really support this wonderful process. Also, if you don't have a gallbladder, you really need to be taking bile salts and things that support the release of bile an hour and a half to 2 hours after you eat for the rest of your life, because that bile function can't happen without the gallbladder. The gallbladder has to do with this strong release of bile an hour and a half after you eat to cause that alkaline explosion. So it's a very, very important thing for the rest of your life to be getting things that really support bile salts and creating that alkaline environment an hour and a half to 2 hours after you eat, without harming your acid function while you're eating. So many people are really aware, especially in Southern California, of how beneficial it is to have some hot lemon water before you eat, to have perhaps some water with apple cider vinegar in it before you eat. And one of the things that I also really love to encourage people to consider is having sauerkraut juice before you eat. And at one point, we'll probably be doing a little video to teach you how to make your own sauerkraut. It's incredibly inexpensive. It's so easy to make. You only need to make, a big giant batch, like once every 3 months or so, to have all that you need to feed a family of 4. And we keep adding extra water to it so that we have excess fluid. We have the excess sauerkraut juice to drink. My son likes to call it sauerkraut shots. And he personally loves really spicy things, so his are more kimchi shots, but I call it kimchi on steroids because he just loads it with pekins and jalapenos and habaneros and garlic because he loves that hot, spicy taste. So if you happen to be one of those people, this is a great place to create one of your spicy, wonderful foods to add to your diet. Because not only, will you enjoy that spicy taste, but you'll be doing something that is incredible for your entire digestive system and that helps to upregulate the acid in your stomach so that you can really digest well. We encourage people to put a teaspoon or more of sauerkraut into every meal. Especially, if you're eating things like eggs for breakfast and vegetables, or eggs and some form of wonderful grass-fed meat, then having a couple tablespoons of sauerkraut is a wonderful thing to add to your meal because it'll be contributing that acid while you're eating, and also having a little bit before, or having some Swedish bitters. I happen to make my own. I love doing this sort of thing. And what you can do with your Swedish bitters, because they are so bitter and so strong, is that you just take a teaspoon and add it to a cup of your favorite tea, ideally a digestive tea. For this time of year, for spring, what we would do is, even though the digestive bitters themselves are so wonderful for the liver, we would look at specific herbal teas that are really wonderful for the liver, like dandelion, like milk thistle, like, my goodness, there's so many, gentian. There are wonderful Chinese herbal combinations that are specific to the liver, and we can add a little bit of that, and or just make a tea that you happen to love the taste of. Maybe a chai type of a tea with black tea with, well, it's actually best not to use black tea while you're doing a cleanse. But you could use something like your cinnamon and cardamom and ginger and black pepper and those sorts of ginger, those delicious sorts of herbs. Or just grate some ginger and, like we talked about earlier, squeeze the juice into your cup, or just put the grates into your cup. And then after they've had a chance to steep for 5 minutes or so, you can strain those out and add your Swedish bitters to it. So that's another wonderful, wonderful thing that you can do for yourself. A very important thing is to get outside. And the liver meridian in Chinese medicine runs up your leg. And so working with exercises that really help to stimulate the movement of the energy up the leg is a great thing to do. And yoga has many wonderful exercises. So I encourage you to look into doing some yoga exercises that are really helping to open up the whole front of the leg. And that will really support you in working with your liver as well. There are so many things that we can do, but I'm going to spend a moment here talking to you a little bit about the classic liver gallbladder flush. And most people can handle doing this, but if you notice that you feel nauseous, you should cut back because it's too much for you at the moment. And basically what I have people do is if they have a juicer, they can juice grapefruit, or just even hand juice a grapefruit, or even use a spoon to juice a grapefruit. Or if you have one of the 2 or 3 horsepower blenders, you can just peel the grapefruit and throw the whole thing into your blender. And then you take 2 tablespoons of olive oil and as much ginger as you're comfortable with, as much garlic as you're comfortable with, and a little bit of cayenne. I guess I should say as much cayenne as you're comfortable with, because some people really like a lot. And you take this and you blend it up in the blender. And surprisingly, it can have a really interesting taste. I mean, a lovely taste that you might really enjoy. If you have a really strong sweet tooth, you could throw in either a tangerine or an apple to this blend. But you basically are going to make a drink of this. Now, before you start making this drink, there is a clearing tea that is to be consumed after you have this drink, and it takes about 15 minutes to make. So I usually have people start this process before they make the blended drink. And what you do is you use a teaspoon of flax, a teaspoon of fennel, and a teaspoon of fenugreek. And you take those and add to that a teaspoon of licorice root, and you bring that to a boil, and then you let it simmer for 15 minutes. And when it's done, you add some fresh peppermint or peppermint tea bag, and if you can get it, a comfrey tea bag or some fresh comfrey, and let it steep for 4 or 5 minutes. With the fire off now, you just steep it in a cup. And after you have started making that, you can make your drink and slowly sip that wonderful blended drink. And that will help to support the thinning and the release of the bile from the gallbladder. So again, you would either do that on an empty stomach, or you would do it an hour and a half to 2 hours after a meal, because we're stimulating gallbladder flow, right? So, and as soon as you complete drinking that drink, you'd start sipping on your tea and drink at least 1 cup of that tea. And then you probably won't feel like eating for 3 or 4 hours, but it will do this wonderful job of helping to cleanse your liver. So that's a very wonderful, simple way to do what we call a liver gallbladder flush. Now, the other thing that I really feel is very important to understand is that we all have varying degrees of ability to healthfully release toxins. In Europe, they looked at a system that had to do with 4 different nomenclatures for this. So very few people these days are a number 1 because of our lifestyle, but a number 1 type person is somebody who has a great ability to clear toxins. They pee like horses, they have great bowel movements, they get high fevers if they get sick, and they're usually only sick for 24 hours. They'll sweat like crazy. And if they get angry, what they'll do is they'll just explode and get really angry and release it, and then afterwards they feel immediately remorseful, and they'll go to the person that they just dumped all over and ask them for forgiveness. And usually that person is not a type 1 like they are, and they might actually hold on to the hurt feelings for a long time, thinking about what they should have said, could have said, should have done, could have done. And depending upon what the dumping was about, they might think about it for an hour or 2, or they might think about it for the rest of their lives, something that was really, they just were not able to release. So number 1s are great releasers, and that liver gallbladder flush that I just mentioned to you is great for them. Most everybody else needs to do something that I call a drainage process. In Europe, they call it biotherapeutic drainage before they get involved with working with a cleanse like that. And one thing that we can do that's fabulous for supporting cleanse and helping to up-regulate the ability to be able to effectively release toxins is to do something called a castor oil pack. With a castor oil pack, you take cotton flannel, and I like to use a special type of castor oil that's extra virgin that I get from India, and you drizzle some castor oil into this fabric. And then you take 3 or 4 other layers that have not had the oil drizzled into it, and that goes behind the one that has the oil in it. Now, ideally, I like to see people use this pack from their collarbone area, which is where the lymphatic system is, they call it the terminus, where the lymphatic system ends, all the way down to the pubic bone. Because wherever you place castor oil on the skin, it will help to upregulate or make more effective the lymphatic system. And by adding heat to this, it will really support that detoxification process. The lymphatic system goes to every single cell in the body, helping to pick up toxins and takes it to lymph nodes where there are a lot of lymphocytes that break down those toxins and send them out through the channel they're supposed to go out through. So by supporting the lymphatic system, we're helping to truly support the liver as well, because it's helping with that release of toxins. And we always put some heat source on top of the castor oil. My favorite way to do it is to just go into a sauna, but many people will also enjoy using a heating pad. And I usually have people put 2 knots in the cord of the heating pad so as to reduce the negative effect of the electricity coming through the cord. And just so that you know, when you do this, you have the castor oil covering your pancreas, your spleen, your stomach, your liver, your gallbladder, your small intestine, your large intestine. For women, their ovaries and their fallopian tubes and their uteruses. So it's fabulous to do this. And if you have kidney issues, you would also want to place the castor oil pack on your back, where the kidneys can be also taken care of. Please excuse the sounds that you're hearing in the background. But anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful way to support the function of your lymphatic system and make the job of your liver that much easier. Because the greater the load of toxins in your body, the greater the load of work that you're creating for both your liver, and we'll be talking about the kidney and its role in all of this too at another time. So I think we're getting close to our time of ending. I just want to mention that in Europe, there's a great understanding about these different levels of abilities to release toxins. Number 2s, they have a challenge because they are not releasing as quickly. 3s are actually having tissue damage that's happened because they can't release the toxins effectively, and they encapsulate the toxins into different forms of tumors and growths. And the last level, 4s, are actually having such degeneration that we see cancers and serious autoimmune disease. So there are specific homeopathic remedies that will help upregulate this process and support people in clearing those toxins. So what I'd like to leave you with today is that there's many things that we can do to help our bodies keep us really healthy and really well. And each season has its own special gift to us. This is the season of the liver gallbladder, and I encourage you to really take a little bit of time and give a gift to your gallbladder and liver in one of these ways that we just mentioned. Thanks for tuning in.